Hi everybody, Jamie here. Today I want to give you part one of our emotions education, and then later in the week we will talk more about some application using the essential oils to support yourself emotionally. So let's kick this off by asking a question. Would you like to be happier, more connected, and empowered? I think all of us could answer yes to that question, no matter where we are in our emotional health, because there's always room for improvements in everything in life. I believe that the first step to better health is understanding our bodies. We have to listen to our bodies and understand what it's trying to tell us. When it comes to our health, I feel that we tend to focus so much on the physical side. We focus on our symptoms, and we many times will ignore how unhealthy we are emotionally. Physically, we may feel pain or fatigue and seek answers and try to get to the root of the problem, what's causing the symptoms happening in our bodies, this lack of balance that we're feeling. What we don't realize that many times these physical problems are connected to our emotions. So it's very important that we understand our emotions and how they work in our bodies so that we can live a healthy life physically and emotionally. So why are emotions important? Lois talked a little bit about this yesterday in our introduction. Science and modern approaches to achieving wellness have been focused on physiology. So as I mentioned before, we focus on the physical side of things. Why am I not feeling well? Why am I experiencing these symptoms? The irony in that is that our physiology begins in our psychology. In other words, how you feel and what you believe about how you feel has a big impact on what you are experiencing in your body on a physiological level. So if we wish to live and feel optimally, we first must learn to think and feel optimally. We have to seriously take a look at where we are emotionally and understand how our emotions work in our bodies and how they will affect us physically. So let's talk science. I love science. I don't know about you, but I love studying the science behind the oils and the science of what's happening in our bodies when it comes to our emotions. It's amazing when you start digging into the science of how our emotions work in our bodies and how they affect us. Many of our unhealthy thoughts or our emotional habits go back to our childhood. How we respond to our life experiences become habits over time. Our bodies respond to life experiences chemically, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's say you had something happen to you as a child, or you had a hard childhood. Your body responds to that chemically. We go into what's called fight or flight, and that's just a natural response when our body experiences trauma or a negative experience. What is happening in our bodies when this happens is that we secrete chemicals. Hormones that produce steroids, things like higher levels of cortisol and adrenaline. That fight or flight kicks in like our body is in danger. And so the more times this happens, the more stress we are under, the more steroids we start to produce. Our cortisol and adrenaline levels remain at high levels on a regular basis. Our bodies are not designed to stay at those high levels, and so we will start to develop physical effects from that over time. Steroids also block serotonin. Serotonin is our happy hormone, that neurotransmitter that gives us our sense of well-being. The more we are under stress and the more steroids we produce at high levels, we start to, in time, produce less serotonin. And that's not good because we start to lose that sense of well-being, that sense of homeostasis, that sense of balance. Over time, then, we start to experience problems with our moods. We become more emotional and have more mood swings. Our receptor sites on our cells begin to shrink and become desensitized. Our receptor sites receive messages from our brain. As this happens, our body begins to have poor communication, causing things to again become unbalanced in our bodies and mind. Then we find ourselves stuck with memories of feeling unsafe, unloved, insecure, not enough, and the list could go on and on. Those feelings then become habits. And it's not just happening in the brain, but it's happening on a cellular level at this point. So in order to restore our health on a cellular level, we have to break this cycle, this habit that we formed of responding to life experiences in this way, and create new habits and ways of thinking. So let's talk a little bit about how you can better understand your emotions and start to break this cycle and develop some new habits. As a human being, you are beautiful. You are a complex creation, and you are created to function as a whole. The spirit, the mind, and the body are inseparably connected, communicating at a cellular level. You can see on this image here that each one affects the other equally. It's basically a continuous cycle. So I mentioned before, many times we focus on the physical health so much and we don't address our emotional and spiritual needs. But you can see here that the body is only 1/3 of our overall health and well-being. So this is why it's important to understand all three, how they work, and how to restore balance and health in all three areas of our being. We can't fix one without fixing all of them. Your body is made of intelligent cells wired to restore health. And this just means your body is brilliant in design and naturally wants to be balanced and whole. It's designed to restore itself to health and find balance. When we hear the word emotions, we may think of them as feelings or reactions, but in reality, they are actually chemical molecules that are carried throughout the body. They carry information messages to our cells. They get into the cell through the cell receptors, which is basically like the eyes and ears of the cell. And they affect our behaviors and moods and impact how the cells function. So we talked about how steroids produced from stress destroy our receptor sites. Our emotions will carry those messages to our cells and affect how we behave and our body's physical health. So without that proper communication, our cells do not function properly and cause physical and mental disease over time. Emotions are processed through our entire bodies. In fact, science has revealed that we have 3 brains. How many of you knew that? Did you know that you have 3 brains, 3 separate brains? There are complex neural functions in our mind, our heart, and our gut, and they actually function separately from each other. So let's take a look at these quickly. First, we have our mind brain. This is our intellect and logic. This is where our subconscious is stored. We store every single life experience in our subconscious. This will greatly start to affect our moods and behavior based on how we process and respond to each one. The heart is our intuition and our feelings. And then the gut is where 90% of our serotonin is produced. Remember, that's our happy hormone, our sense of well-being. So when we say expressions like we think with our head and not the heart, or we say that we have a gut feeling, those are not just expressions, those are actually scientific because each of our brains process independently from each other. And this is why we feel conflicted sometimes when making decisions or on how to process a life experience. It's important that we learn how to keep all 3 healthy so that there is healthy communication between the three brains and that we experience balance in our system instead of conflict. Molecules of emotion, now I'm going to skip this slide. Molecules of emotion run every system of our body. So you can see scientifically how emotions affect us in all areas and how it's so important to remain emotionally healthy because of its strong effect on our physical health. So when we have healthy communication between our three brains, we have connection and wellness in our bodies. The three brains communicate with each other. They feed back and therefore influence the mind. This goes back to how we think and feel optimally that we talked about in the beginning. Healthy responses to life experiences, new habits, and better thoughts. Okay, that was a lot of science. So let's make this practical and put this into a scenario. Let's look at the top left-hand corner. This life experience that this lady is going through right now. Have any of you ever felt like this poor girl before? Do you have days like this? The phone is ringing, the baby's crying, the dog needs something. This is all happening at once. Some of us might call this multitasking, and some of us might feel like this every single day. This reminds me of when my daughter was a baby. I love her very, very much, but she was a crier, a screamer, actually. I taught music lessons at home, and I had her in the house. Someone was there watching her, but I could hear her crying in the next room. I could hear the phone ringing. I could hear the doorbell ringing. Sometimes I would have moody teenagers. I'd have a different personality every 35 or 30 minutes to an hour. I'd have kids misbehaving, not focusing, hitting wrong notes, doing somersaults off the piano bench. There was something going on, multiple things going on every moment. And so I loved my life. I loved what I did. But this is how I felt every day. And so over on the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see that her three brains are starting to process this life experience. Each brain is going to send its own message. The mind will think logically. It might think, I have to figure this out. This is my responsibility. There's too much happening at once. The heart will say, this is your feeling and intuition. I feel overwhelmed. Maybe I'm holding too much in. I can't handle this. And then the gut will always respond and reinforce to the mind and heart and produce that gut feeling. So you might think, I'm stuck. Top right-hand corner of your screen, what you're going to see happen is a biochemical reaction will start to occur here within her body. She will react based on how the body processed the situation. She's feeling conflicted, confused, and because of the gut response, she may even notice an unsettled stomach. These negative reactions are the consequence of conflicting messages between her three brains, which disrupt her internal balance. This results in disconnection, or what we might call dis-ease, disease within the body. And this is where you will start to see the physical evidence of this disruption. So down at the bottom right-hand corner, we see what happens after all of this takes place. When we're thinking and feeling at the same time, a new belief is created. So in this example, she now concludes, because she can't handle it, I'm not good enough. This life experience she had will be stored in her subconscious mind forever and affect her moods and behaviors. And then patterns will begin to form. Remember that 90% of our behaviors are directed by our subconscious. Life happens every second of every day. We process and we react to every single one of them. Life experience plus process plus reaction equals a belief. So two things can happen here. We can either be reinforcing old beliefs or planting new ones. When we nurture a belief, it grows roots and produces fruit. So I want to ask you today, as we dive into this, are you cultivating seeds or weeds? Is your body processing and responding to life experiences in a positive or a negative way? What kind of patterns are you forming? What kind of habits are you forming? Your beliefs will show up in your life and create your reality. Okay, so what we're going to do is stop right here today. This is a little bit about the science about emotions, how the emotions work in the body, kind of making it a little practical for you. Tomorrow, what we will do is talk about essential oils and how you can use the essential oils to support you emotionally and use them as support to help you start to develop some new patterns, some new ways of thinking, to improve the communication between your two brains, improve the way that you process your life experience, and begin to feel more healthy emotionally. So I will see you back here tomorrow for part 2. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.